Welcome to the Story Selling Podcast, the show that explores the art and science of authentic marketing for purpose-led entrepreneurs. With me, your host and founder of the Story Selling Lab, Rob Drummond. This episode of the Story Selling Podcast is sponsored by my agency, the Story Selling Lab, where I help purpose-led entrepreneurs to generate a consistent flow of great clients using LinkedIn ads without funding the big tech Christmas party. To learn more, head to storyselling.biz. On with the show. If you're looking to improve the conversion rate at any part of your marketing funnel, then looking at the forms is one of those fulcrum points. What are those hinges that can swing big doors? Because if you implement a form that has even, say, a 5% higher conversion rate, that actually impacts your results quite a lot. So this is true on your website, and we've known for years that this is true on your website. If you use any of the main website builders, Lead Pages, Thrive Themes, any of these landing page designer tools, the forms that they offer will both be one-step and two-step forms. So a one-step form is where you place the full form with all of its fields on the landing page that people see. The two-step form just asks them, are you interested in this? Would you like this thing? When they click a button, it loads the second form in a pop-up. That's what a two-step form is. And the reason that a two-step form can sometimes improve conversion rate is because the visitor has already said yes once to the first button. They've said, yes, I would like that. Then it loads the second form and they go, oh no, I didn't realize it was so many fields, but they've already said yes once. So there's this element of consistency. If you read Persuasion by Robert Cialdini, he talks about consistency as being one of the factors of persuasion. So this works on your website. In my own landing page testing, I've probably found that a two-step form will increase conversion rates of probably 50% of the time, maybe even slightly less. Sometimes I find that the one-step forms actually work better, where it's all out in the open, what it is that you're asking people to do, but it depends on the offer, it depends on the landing page, it depends on the audience. But it's definitely, the point is, it's definitely worth testing a two-step form. You can also use a two-step form in your LinkedIn conversation ads where you're directing people to a LinkedIn-hosted lead form. That is the topic of today's episode, is the two-step template. Sometimes I call this the short two-step because the first message that you send is actually much shorter than all of the other templates that we've looked at in this series. As always on the show, we'll cover three ideas. The first idea is the deep scratch, as I'm calling it. The second idea is the mechanism, which belongs in the second message that people receive. And the third idea is the dilemma, which is an alternative format, an alternative use case for the two-step approach. So let's jump in and have a look at the first idea. The way that the two-step process works with a LinkedIn conversation ad then is, as usual, you target an audience on LinkedIn and you send them a sponsored message, which is now called a conversation ad. In all of the previous templates that we've looked at, the recipient receives a sponsored message and there is a link, there is a button that they can tap or click to open a lead form to respond to the offer made by the message. So in that regard, it's kind of like a one-step process. They receive the message, they respond to the message, they complete the form, they get the white paper, or they get the lead magnet, or whatever it is that you've offered them. In a two-step process, you send them a sponsored message. They reply to the sponsored message by tapping a button by saying, yeah, I'm interested in that. When they tap that button to say, I'm interested, LinkedIn sends them a second message. The second message might have more detail. It might have more of the mechanism. The second message contains a button which links to your lead form where they can get whatever it is that you're offering. So there's two messages. In effect, a two-step conversation ad works more like a chatbot, where you're sending this first message. This is the first idea I want to talk to you about. And the first idea is the deep scratch. And the first message is very short, which is why I call it the short two-step. You might open the message by saying, I hope you can help me. I'm looking for this particular type of person who is suffering from this problem. And you want to scratch deep on what that problem is. We talk in marketing about scratching at the problem. And actually, in the two-step process, you want to scratch as deeply as you possibly can on the deepest possible emotional level. I'm looking for solo business owners who, however much they try, can't make LinkedIn ads work for their business. And you want to scratch as deeply as you possibly can. So you need to think, what is it that you know about your ideal clients? So sticking with the solopreneur or small business owner, the main things are really time and confusion. So you might scratch at one or both of those issues in the first message. So it might open up by saying, I'm looking for solopreneurs who know their ideal clients are on LinkedIn, but are slightly terrified of the ad platform, just don't know where to start, are worried about spending next month's payday on ads and seeing nothing in return. Do you see how that kind of wording is scratching a little bit deeper at the problem? By spending next month's payday, by taking bread off the table, by having that awkward conversation with your spouse about, are we going to make payroll next month? So you want to go a little bit deeper with your message. So yes, we're sending a shorter message because we're not making an offer in the first message. We're just saying, I'm looking for this type of person who is suffering from this specific problem that manifests itself with these symptoms in these ways. Is this you? And then you have a button that says, yes, that sounds like me, or yes, I'd like to learn more, or yes, tell me more. When they click or tap that button, obviously on a desktop, they'll click it. On a mobile device, they'll tap it. When they tap it, most likely, LinkedIn will send them a second message. And that's where you can say, great, here's how we solve the problem for our clients. We go through this specific methodology to make sure that they aren't confused, they don't waste money, they don't miss payday next month. We've got a free outline template guide explaining how it all works. Just click or tap the button below to get a free copy. So in the second message, you can say a bit more. And we've got this element of consistency because they responded to the first message. In theory, then they're more likely to respond to the second message, fill in the form, request a lead magnet. The first idea was that the first message itself has to scratch deeply at an emotional level at the real problems that people are thinking about in your market. The second idea, then, we've already kind of touched on a bit in my ramblings in the previous section. And the second idea is the mechanism. So in the second message that you send people, you explain how it is that you do what you do. You tell them about the mechanism and you name the mechanism. It might be that you say, I've got a process for writing LinkedIn conversation ads. I call it the conversation checklist. It helps if you actually name it because it almost makes it like proprietary to you. So details of how you do what you do and the mechanism of what makes the way you solve the problem different, better, faster, more convenient, all of that needs to go in the second message. So message one is scratching deep at the problem. Message two is where you give them the mechanism and make them the offer of taking the next step, downloading the guide, downloading the template, downloading the lead magnet, even just subscribing to your list. If this is the problem that you help your readers, your listeners, your viewers to solve, you can just invite them onto your list. That's also a valid call to action as well. The third idea I want to talk to you about is a slightly different variation on the two-step process, and it's called the dilemma. And again, if you download my LinkedIn ads conversation template pack, you will see a template called the dilemma. The dilemma messages people and it says, hi, so-and-so, I'm hoping you can help me to solve an argument. You see, we were debating in our last meeting which lead magnet to offer next to people who are suffering from this particular problem. Jane in marketing thinks we should promote our lead magnets about LinkedIn conversation ads because it's been our best performing one and our clients have found it really helpful. Mark, the MD, thinks we should offer the LinkedIn audience building guide. So I'm putting it to you. Which of these two guides would be most helpful to you right now? And then you put two buttons in the ad. The first button opens what is your control lead magnets, the lead magnet that you think they're more likely to download. Because at the moment, you can only associate one lead form with a conversation ad. It would be nice if you could associate two different lead forms where you send them a message and you say, would you like this guide or this guide? And then whichever one they click loads the relevant LinkedIn hosted lead form. Unfortunately, you can't do that. You can only associate one lead form with the ad. So what you have to do is you have to back a horse. You have to pick which one you think they're most likely to want or be interested in and make that the lead form. And then the other one needs to be a conversion focused offer where you send people off to your website to download the other guide. And obviously, if people start downloading that other guide, then you can switch it around and you can make the other guide your control version that has the lead form associated with it. The dilemma is something I've tested with a number of clients, and I'm yet to really hit it out of the park. I've seen some results with it, and I think it's quite important to open the ad and ask them for help. I'm writing because I'm hoping you can help me solve an office argument. I'm writing because I need your help settling an internal discussion that we're having here. So asking for help is a great way to open the ad. And just because I've not really knocked this one out of the park with my clients yet doesn't necessarily mean that it's not the right ad format for you. The point of this podcast series about LinkedIn conversation ads has been to talk you through some different variations, some different ways of writing conversation ads. And each template is like a tool in the toolbox. And just because you hit something with a hammer once and it doesn't work doesn't mean that the hammer's broken. It just means that the hammer wasn't the right tool for the particular problem that you were facing at that point in time. It might be that you needed a screwdriver or something. So the dilemma is, what are the tools in your toolbox? It's also a good way of surveying your audience to find out, well, what problems do they really want to solve? And how do they raise the questions about those problems? That's another thing you can ask in the dilemma. Are you thinking more about solving this problem or this problem? And the way you phrase the problem is very important because you're asking people which resonates best with you. And there's learnings in that. By running the dilemma, you've almost got this dual outcome where, yes, you're looking to generate leads and add people to your database, but you're also learning what problems they want to solve and how they raise those problems. It might be that you even write a dilemma ad that says, we have this lead magnet about writing great LinkedIn conversation ads. Do you know what a conversation ad is? Should we call it your guide to LinkedIn sponsored messages, even though that isn't what the ad format's called? Perhaps that would outperform the LinkedIn conversation ad template. So, you can start to test different names of the same lead magnet even as well. That's another variation that I just thought of on the fly. If you do test the dilemma or even the short two-step process where you scratch deep at the problem in the first message and then include your mechanism and call to action in the second message, if you do test this and it works for you, I would love to hear about it. On the whole, I've seen better results with the one-step process, but I do think that the two-step approach has merit. I think it's definitely worth testing. And if you're looking at developing a new lead magnet, I would consider testing the dilemma as well. So yeah, let me know how it goes. You can head to storyselling.biz and fill in the contact form there. You can also send me a direct message on LinkedIn, and I'd love to hear from you. In recap, then, the two-step template is a template where you send people a message and you ask them to respond to the first message before presenting them with the mechanism and the call to action in the second message that they receive. So the two-step format acts more like a chatbot than a single message. I think this allows you to be much more precise in the first message. It allows you to focus exclusively on the problem, scratch deeply at the problems that people are facing, and then save your mechanism, save your call to action to the second message. So on that basis alone, I think it's definitely worth a test. The 3 ideas that we talked about have been the deep scratch, the idea that you want to scratch as deeply as possible at an emotional level on the problems people are facing in the first message that goes out. The second idea was the mechanism, was the fact that you want to talk about the mechanism of how you deliver the results that you do in the second message, and then lead people to your call to action. The third idea we looked at was a variation on the 2-step approach called the dilemma, where you ask people, you go out to your audience and you ask them, which of these lead magnets would help solve the problems that you're facing? Would love to know. It would help to settle an office argument. We're at the end of this series of episodes on LinkedIn conversation ads, which may be a relief. It's kind of a relief to me. It feels like we've been talking about this for quite a long time. I'd encourage you to go back and review the full series. I am going to convert the transcripts of this into a book that will hopefully be coming in a month or two, so you can grab the full copy, including the templates, in a book that will be affordably available on Amazon. And above all, pick 1 or 2 templates. Pick the ones that resonate the best with you. As a starting point, I would probably put most of my eggs in the problem-led approach. That generally has been what has worked. Although, I've seen great results recently with the confession template. And I keep going back to the 2-step approach because I think it should work in some use cases, in some audiences, where you're trying to reach people in a certain way. Do revisit all of the options. Give them a test. Approach it with an open mind. Keep a log of your results as well, because if you don't log your results, then you don't learn anything. So keep a log of what's worked, what hasn't, and then keep iterating on the templates, on the formats that work. It might even be, for instance, that in the problem-led approach, you keep testing different problems, phrased in different ways that scratch at different levels of emotion. Some messages, perhaps you're more direct in talking about the problems that people face, and sometimes you're talking about the symptoms of the problem, for instance. So there's always different variations, there's always different iterations, and you have to keep testing because you don't know what's going to work. And it's very unlikely that you're going to knock the ball out of the park on your first attempt. So keep going, test some more, get data, keep iterating. That's really what the Story Selling Lab is all about. It's a lab because there's work required. We are both creating in an artistic sense. We're figuring out what the message is. We're creating ads. On the flip side, we're creating follow-up emails and follow-up systems, but we're also measuring. We're measuring to see what works, and we're iterating. That's where the lab side of things comes in. If you'd like to learn more about the Story Selling Lab, you can head to storyselling.biz/lab. For a low monthly fee, you can join 2 monthly calls with me to make better plans going forwards and to get feedback on your work, to get feedback on your ads, to get feedback on your marketing emails that go out. That's what the Story Selling Lab is all about. So again, it's storyselling.biz/lab. On the next episode of the Story Selling podcast, we're going to move on and I'm going to talk about the 3-step funnel approach for attracting people into your world. If you're not currently subscribed to the podcast updates, you can subscribe for free at storyselling.biz/podcast. If you don't have a copy of my book, Simple Story Selling, that's at storyselling.biz/book. And finally, if you'd like help with your ads on either a training or a done-for-you basis, that's storyselling.biz/LinkedIn-ads. Thank you as always for listening, and I'll catch you next time. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Story Selling Podcast, you'll want to make sure you're on my email list. Head to storyselling.biz/podcast, where you can opt in to future episode notifications and also download my Lead Incubator Blueprint. You can also find my book, Simple Story Selling, on Amazon in paperback and Kindle formats. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.